Hi everybody, it's me, Miss Lisa. Welcome to Stitch Kids. Today the project we are going to begin is a monster mouth pouch. It is a felt pouch with a zipper inside. You can hide all kinds of special things like school supplies, maybe little tiny toys, money, or candy. No one will ever know that they're inside your little monster mouth pouch. To complete this project, you will need a supply kit from the South Huntington Public Library, which includes the following items: 2 rectangles of felt, 1 small scrap of felt, several pieces of colorful embroidery thread, 2 buttons, a zipper, a piece of rickrack, which is like a piece of ribbon, and 1 sheet containing your monster mouth patterns. You will also need your pins and needles from your South Huntington sewing kit. Your pins and needles may be in your pin pal. That's where I'm keeping mine. I also am storing my needle threader there. You're going to need a pair of scissors and some glue. All right, let's get started. We will start by preparing our pattern. Your pattern is in 2 pieces, 1 piece for the front and 1 piece for the back. You'll cut around the thick black lines so your pattern looks like this. On the front piece, you'll notice there is a big rectangle sort of toward the bottom. Unlike most patterns, we're going to cut a hole in this one. We're going to remove this rectangle so that you will know where to add the zipper to your monster mouth pouch. It can be kind of hard to cut a hole in a piece of paper without cutting through the side of the paper to get to the middle. So to easily cut a hole in something, fold that piece of paper in half very gently, but without creasing the bottom of the paper. Use your scissors to cut a small hole in the middle of the rectangle that you want to remove. You can see I just made a little notch there. Unfold your paper, and now you have a hole in the place where you want to cut. Put the tip of the scissors into that hole and cut along the black line. Keep cutting around the inside of that rectangle until the white piece that says "cut out rectangle" can be removed. All the way around, cut out the whole middle of the rectangle. Just like this. Okay, great. Now we can start working with the fabric. Now let's pin the patterns to the fabric. Decide which color you would like to be the front and which color you would like to be on the back. We'll start with the back. Place your pattern flat on the felt, and you will use pins to secure the pattern to the felt. You can use as many pins as you think you need. The important thing is to be sure the pattern stays flat against the felt. Then use your scissors to cut all the way around the black line. Okay, cut very carefully as I go around the side of the monster's head. There we go. When you are finished cutting, remove the pins and put them back in your pin pal. This way your pins will not get lost and they will be ready for you to use when you continue working on this project. So now we have one shape for the back of our monster mouth pouch, and we can set these two things aside. Now we'll do the same with the front. We'll pin the pattern to the felt, making sure that the pattern lays nice and flat. You'll probably notice that each pattern piece says cut 1. That means we need one front and we need one back to complete this project. Okay, so I'm going to cut around the outside as carefully as I can, staying close to the thick black line and keeping the pattern as flat as possible. There we go. And almost finished. Okay, you can set your scraps aside. Now the tricky part is going to be cutting out this opening. So we'll do what we did when we were cutting the pattern. Just fold the fabric in half and we'll cut a notch in the middle of that rectangle. Now you'll see we have a big hole in the middle of the rectangle. We can stick the scissors in the hole and now cut on the inside of the rectangle, staying as close to that black line as you can. If we need to make the opening bigger, we can always go back and do that, but for now, stay inside the thick black line. And go slow. There's no need to rush. This can be kind of tricky to do, I understand. So take your time and do your best. All right. We'll remove the pins and return those to our pin pal. Thank you very much, Pin Pal, for holding on to our pins while we work. Remove the pattern, and now you have one front piece ready to go. It's ready for a zipper mouth, and it is ready for button eyes. Before we attach the front of the Monster Mouth pouch to the back, we are going to add the zipper and the button eyes. It will be easier to work with one piece of fabric by itself rather than two that have already been stitched together. Let's start with the mouth. You've cut a rectangle shape that should be the same length as the zipper. So lay the face over the zipper and arrange the zipper in the center of the open rectangle. You'll notice that my rectangle covers the bottom of my zipper. That's okay, don't worry about it. When you have your zipper centered in the rectangle, use some pins from your pin pal to very carefully pin the front face to the edge of the zipper. I'll show you what I mean. If you look at the back of the face, you'll see that the pin has gone through the edge of the zipper fabric and has come back out the front, securing the zipper to the felt. Let me make sure that this is nice and straight, and then I'll continue pinning. This will keep the zipper in place while you stitch. Add another pin. And now let's add 2 pins to the bottom to keep the bottom of the zipper in place. Okay, there we go. You'll notice that some of the zipper is hanging outside of the monster's face. You want to take your scissors and trim those little edges of the zipper away so that it's not sticking out of your pouch. All right, now we are ready to begin stitching. To stitch, you will need a needle with a large eye. You'll need your needle threader, and you may choose one of the colors of embroidery thread that is in your kit. I think I'd like to go around the mouth with purple. Choose a purple thread. Push the wire part of the needle threader through the eye of the needle. Put the end of the thread through the wire part of the needle threader and pull so you have a little tail hanging off there. Hold on to the thread and the needle while you pull the threader and pull all the way through until the tail comes through. Remove your threader, put your threader back in your pin pal, and now we have a needle with the thread going through the eye and a small tail hanging off of the end, like this. Before we begin stitching, we are going to want to add a double knot to the end of the thread. Create a knot by wrapping the thread around your finger and pushing the tail through. Pull. And do that one more time so you make a knot on a knot, and this will keep the thread from slipping through your fabric as you stitch. Okay, we're ready to stitch. We are going to use straight embroidery stitches to attach the zipper mouth to the front of the monster pouch. This is going to be a little tricky, and it might take some trial and some error before we get started in the right way. But what you're going to want to do is make sure that your needle goes through the cloth part of the zipper on the back and through the monster's face. So let's find a spot on the back, maybe right about here. Push your needle through, turn it over, and see where it ended up on the front. I think that's a little too close to the edge of the felt, so I'm going to try one more time and move the needle up just a little bit, still catching the fabric part of the zipper and the felt on the face. There we go. That's a little farther away. That's much better. Pull all the way through and then make a stitch. You can make a long stitch or a short stitch. It's up to you. Push the needle through the felt and make sure that the needle is going through the cloth part of the zipper on the back. You can turn it over if you want to see to make sure that you caught that cloth edge. It's very important that you catch the cloth edge, otherwise the zipper will fall out when you zip and unzip. Now we'll do the same thing back here. We'll make a stitch, push through the cloth edge of the zipper and through the felt on the front and pull. Looks like I have a pin that's in the way. How about we move this while we sew? So now I'm going to have to be sure to pinch my project real tight so it doesn't slide while I'm making my stitches. Make a stitch. Make sure that it goes through the cloth part of your zipper. Let's turn it over and check. Okay, that looks good. And then pull. Now you'll continue to do this down the side of the zipper, the long side of the zipper, across the short side of the zipper, up the other long side of the zipper, around this side, and then we'll make a knot when we get to here. Okay, give it a try. As I was sewing, I noticed I made a mistake. I don't like where this stitch ended up. So I'm going to remove it. To remove the stitch, take the thread out of your needle. Turn your project over and just pull the stitch back through. That's the nice thing about leaving a tail on your needle. If you make a mistake, it's very easy to fix. Now we'll just rethread the needle and continue. Okay, I'm going to use the needle threader and put the thread through the wire part. Pull through the needle. There we go. Okay. I'm all set, and now I can continue stitching. Hopefully I'll be a little more careful as I go. Let me take a look before I pull it all the way through. That looks good. That looks about right. Not too close to the edge and not too far. Pull it through. Oops. There we go. Make a stitch. Give the needle a push. Make sure that it caught the fabric on the back. And continue. When you've come back around and you've reached the end of your zipper, you'll notice there are two pieces of fabric here. We want to be sure to tack those down nice and tight so your zipper stays secure when you are zipping and unzipping the pouch. So we'll make sure that we have a stitch coming through right about here, and then make another small stitch right next to that, going through the fabric again to tack it down. Now we'll turn this over. You'll make a small stitch on the front. And you're going to grab this little piece of fabric here on with your next stitch, right there. So you'll see that the fabric is tacked to the felt. We'll come up again from the front and go back to the back. Make another stitch and make sure that you put your needle through the fabric on the back and pull. Now we can probably make one more stitch here. Well, maybe we don't need to. Let's do it anyway. One more small stitch here. Turn it over and make a small stitch so the thread ends up on the back of your project, and we can tie it off on the back. Put your needle under the closest stitch. Pull gently. Leave a little loop. Put the needle through the loop and pull to make a knot. Pull your knot nice and tight and trim the thread. Remove any pins you have left and give them back to Pin Pal. All right, and now we're ready to add the button eyes. Let's add some eyes. Your kit included 2 buttons which we will use for eyes, and you can choose where you would like to place them on your monster's face. I still have some purple thread left in my needle. I think I'm going to go ahead and use that thread for sewing the eyes, but you can choose any color from your kit that you would like. I especially would like to use a dark color and a color that is different than the color of the buttons, so the thread, when it peeks through these 2 holes here, will look like pupils in a real eye. Okay, we'll do one eye at a time. Hold the eye to the front of your monster's face. Take your needle and poke through the back of the felt and come up through 1 hole. Pull tight. Now go back down through the other hole, all the way through the back of the felt, and pull it tight. And you will want to do this a couple of times to make a nice thick block of thread in the center of the eye, so your monster looks nice and scary. Okay, there's the second time. Let's do it one more time. Okay, and you can see a nice thick line of embroidery thread there, making a pupil in my monster's eye. When you've made as many stitches as you want, turn the felt over and tie off your thread by putting your needle under your last stitch, pulling it through, leave a little loop, and then put your thread through the loop and pull so you have a nice knot, and trim your thread. There we go, there's one eye. I still have enough thread on my needle to do the other eye, so I'll tie a knot, a double knot that is, at the other end, opposite the needle. There's one knot. And another knot, and we'll do the same thing with the other button. Let's see, I think I'd like it to be right about there, so I'm going to hold it tight, push the needle through the back of the monster's head and through one of the button holes, pull it tight, and push it back down through the other hole all the way through the back. If they're not even, don't worry about it. Your monster's face can look a little crazy. That's okay. So then I'll add a few more stitches to hold the button in place and to make a nice dark pupil on the eye. There we go. Looks like it matches the other eye. When you're finished, turn the face over, find your last stitch, carefully put the needle underneath that last stitch, pull to make a loop, put the needle through the loop, and pull to make a knot. And you can trim the thread after you've made a nice knot. There you go. Now we're ready to attach your monster's face to the back of the monster's head. Line up both pieces of felt as carefully as you can. That means we shouldn't really see any of the yellow showing through the front. But if some of it shows, that's okay. We'll make up for that when we do our stitching. When you've got them lined up, use your pins to pin them together. And you can pin them in several places to keep the two pieces secure while you stitch. Remember not to pin too close to the edge. You want to leave some room for your stitches. And you also want to pin in such a way that you won't get stabbed while you're stitching. I think I'll do two more, one on this side of his chin and one on the other side of his chin, like this. Okay. The pins have gone all the way through and the felt is held together. So now we're ready to load up our needle. You can use the needle you have been using since the beginning of this project, one with a rather large eye. And you may choose any color of thread from your kit. I think I'm going to use blue. Grab your needle threader and your needle. Push the wire from your needle threader through the eye of the needle. Put the end of your thread through the wire part of the threader. Leave a little tail and pull. So the tail goes through. And we'll leave a tail on the needle end of our thread and make a double knot at the opposite end. One knot, and then another knot on top of the knot to make a nice thick knot. Okay, to put the monster together, you're going to use a blanket stitch. You may start wherever you would like. I'm going to start here at the corner of his chin and come up through the back. I'm going to push the needle through both pieces of felt, pull gently, and then make a second hole right here where the first one was so that I have a loop. This is how we'll start the blanket stitch. Now push the needle underneath the loop and pull. Going from the back, push your needle through to start the second stitch. You'll see that I've left a little bit of space between the first stitch and the second, and I'm about 1/4 inch from the edge. Pull until you have a loop. Put the needle through the loop and pull the thread toward you, and there is your blanket stitch. As you continue, you'll see that the blue thread becomes a little bit of a decoration. while it holds the two pieces of your monster together. It's very pretty, and it looks good from either side. So continue with your blanket stitch all the way around to the end. If you run out of thread, tie off your thread, add a new piece to your needle, and just continue. If you'd like to use more than one color as you go around, that's fine. It's totally up to you. Do whatever you think would look the best. All right, so continue with your stitches all the way around the monster's face. It can be a little tricky to continue with blanket stitches after you've made a knot, but let's give it a try. We're going to poke the needle through the back and the front and pull. Take your needle and put it under the last stitch and pull very gently. Now you're going to put the needle back through this loop and pull gently. Okay, so now we've made another blanket stitch and we can continue as usual. There we go. And just keep on going until you get around to the end. Almost finished. I decided to change the color of thread just to see what that would look like. Looks pretty cool. If you want, you could alternate your colors of thread to make a pattern as you go around the outside of your monster's face. That would be kind of cool too. I wish I'd thought of that earlier. Oops, drop my stitch. There we go. Okay, I'm getting very close to where we started. I think I made that stitch backwards, so it turned into a knot. You know what I'm going to do, since I made a mistake? I'm going to take the needle off, give it to my pin pal to hold on to for a second, and unknot this. Sometimes that happens. Okay, so there's the loop I meant to go through. Let's leave that there, and I'm very carefully going to put the thread back on my needle without pulling too hard so I don't lose that loop there down by the monster's face. Okay, let's get this through. Reload our needle. Okay. Now there's the loop I was talking about. I'm going to put the needle through the front of it, not the back. There we go. That's better. Anytime you make a mistake, you can always remove the needle, pull your stitch out, and just reload your needle and start again. Okay, it looks like we are just about at the end. Okay, so now to finish, I'm going to put the needle underneath the first blanket stitch I made when we started. Pull. You'll see I have a loop here. I'm going to go around to the back to make a knot. We're going to tie it off here. There we go. and trim the threads. All right, he's all together. Let's put the needle back into our pin pal, and we'll remove these pins and add them to our pin pal too, so they stay in one place, so we don't lose them, so they don't fall on the floor. Is that all of them? Yes. Okay, very nice. Now, before we put the face on, let's give that zipper a try. Awesome. Check that out. Okay, cool. Now, let's grab our glue and a pair of scissors, and we will add a face. There are a couple of small items in your kit that you can use to add to your monster's face if you would like to. There's some rickrack, which is this kind of squiggly ribbon. I think this would make some great eyebrows, or you could add it to the chin. You can cut it to any size that you would like, and just add glue to attach it to the face. I think that I'd like it to be a little smaller. Very carefully put your glue on the back of it. And press it down onto the face. There we go. Don't worry if your glue shows, it will dry clear. You won't be able to see it after it dries. You also have a small piece of felt in your kit, and you can use that to make a nose if you would like. Cut it into any shape that you would like. You could make a circle, you could make a square. I'm kind of making, oh, it looks a little bit like a triangle. I can add a nose like that. I think that's a little too big. I can make it a little smaller. Or you don't have to add a nose at all if you don't want to. It's up to you. I think that looks kind of cool. So I'm going to add a nose too. If you would like, you could also use some of your felt to put some decoration inside the ears, or you could make some shapes to go along his chin. It's totally up to you. And now your monster mouth pouch is ready for stashing your stuff. Thank you so much for sewing with me, and I hope I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Take care.